The grand palace of Lysera stood like a mountain of light, its towers shining with a silver glow that reached the sky. It was the heart of the Lyserian Empire, a world of beauty, order, and silence. Every step, every movement in that place was graceful, like music made of glass. The Lyserians were proud beings, tall, elegant, their skin smooth as liquid metal and their voices soft as wind. To them, perfection was not a dream, it was law. And that was why, on the day the humans arrived, the court fell completely silent. The great doors opened with a sound like thunder, and a small group of humans entered. Their uniforms were plain, their boots heavy, their hearts nervous. They were ambassadors from Earth, the first humans to ever set foot inside the Lyserian palace. Among them walked a man named Elias Ward. He was not a soldier, not a leader, not even anyone important. He was a linguist, a translator. His job was to speak words, to build bridges, to make two different species understand one another. Elias had never seen anything like the Lyserians. Their eyes were like mirrors, shining with light that came from within. He felt tiny before them, like dust before the stars. When he walked into the throne hall, his breath caught in his chest. The queen sat upon a throne of crystal, her crown glowing faintly with threads of energy. Around her stood nobles dressed in silver robes that shimmered with living patterns. He felt all of them staring at him, judging, measuring, wondering how a creature of flesh and scars dared to stand in their presence. He bowed, hands trembling slightly, and waited for the signal to speak. The air was heavy, full of tension. Then a gentle voice spoke from beside the throne. "You may rise." Elias looked up and saw her, Princess Ariale. She was unlike the others. Where most Lyserians held cold perfection, her eyes carried warmth, a faint curiosity. Her hair shimmered like spun moonlight, and her presence seemed to calm the air itself. She looked young, though among Lyserians that could mean decades. Elias swallowed hard and tried to greet her in their language. He had practiced for months, but his tongue stumbled. The words came out twisted, clumsy. Instead of saying honored princess of light, he accidentally said something closer to honored lamplady. The nobles gasped. A few covered their mouths to hide laughter. His cheeks burned red. But then, the princess laughed. A clear, soft sound that filled the hall like sunlight breaking through clouds. "It's all right," she said gently. "The tongue of humans is not so different from ours, only the heart behind it." Her mother, the queen, gave a small frown but said nothing. Elias could only nod, bow again, and retreat to the side, his heart pounding. He felt foolish. He had made a mistake before royalty. Yet for some reason that sound, her laughter, stayed with him. Days passed. The human delegation was given quarters in the east wing of the palace. They were to study, to learn, and to prepare for cultural exchange. Most Lyserians ignored them. They thought humans were noisy, rough, and emotional, too raw for their refined world. But Princess Ariale did not ignore Elias. It began with small things. One morning, while he was studying the ancient Lyserian texts in the library, she appeared quietly behind him. Her voice was soft. "You pronounced my name wrong again," she said with a teasing smile. Elias turned quickly, startled. "Oh, I'm sorry, Princess, I was practicing." She tilted her head, eyes curious. "You study our language so seriously." "Why?" he hesitated. "Because I believe understanding someone's words is the first step to understanding their soul." Her expression softened. "That is a very human thing to say." She sat beside him, folding her long fingers neatly. The glowing books around them filled the air with faint light. They spoke for hours that day, about Earth, about Lysera, about the small things that made their worlds different. Elias learned that the Lyserians lived for hundreds of years, that they no longer felt hunger or disease. Their emotions were gentle, controlled, almost muted. They valued calm over passion, reason over heart. When he told her about humans, how they fought, dreamed, cried, loved, she listened like someone hearing stories from another universe. "You burn so fast," she said once, eyes distant. "Your lives are short but bright, like a flame that refuses to die quietly." He smiled. "Maybe that's why we try so hard. We don't have forever, so we want to make something that lasts." And for the first time in a long while, she smiled not out of politeness, but from something real. The other nobles began to whisper. They said the princess was spending too much time with the human. Some said she was curious, others said she was foolish. But Ariali ignored them. She liked the way Elias spoke, not like a servant or a scholar, but like a friend. One evening they walked together in the crystal gardens. The Lycerian night sky was a dance of stars and auroras. The air smelled of silver rain. Ariali asked, "Do humans truly cry when they are sad?" He nodded. "Yes, sometimes because of pain, sometimes because of joy. It helps us feel lighter." She looked at him quietly. "We used to cry long ago, but we stopped when we learned control. Maybe that was a mistake." He looked at her glowing face, at the sadness that passed through her perfect features, and said softly, "Maybe feeling is what makes us alive." That night, something changed between them. It wasn't spoken, but it was there. A quiet bond, fragile but real. Still, Elias knew his place. He was a guest, an outsider. He could never be part of her world. Yet every time he tried to remind himself, her eyes found him, and he forgot. She would come to the library and watch him translate. Sometimes she'd help him with words. Sometimes she'd just sit beside him in silence. Once, when he asked why she came so often, she said, "Because when I am near you, I remember what warmth feels like." Elias didn't know what to say. He only knew his heart beat faster than ever before. And somewhere deep in the palace, hidden behind walls of crystal and pride, the queen began to notice. The human and the princess had met by accident. But the quiet spark between them was something neither logic nor law could stop. The queen did not yet know it, but that small flame would one day change both their worlds forever. The palace of Lysera was a place of quiet beauty. Its halls shone like frozen rivers, and every sound echoed softly, as if even the walls listened before answering. But for Elias, the most beautiful place was not the throne room or the glowing gardens. It was the small, hidden library where he worked each day. He spent hours there, surrounded by ancient Lycerian scrolls, trying to understand a language that felt more like music than words. The symbols shimmered on the pages, alive with faint light, and each one carried layers of meaning. It was hard work, lonely work, but he loved it, and he was not alone anymore. Princess Ariali often came to that quiet place. At first it had surprised him. Royals rarely entered such simple rooms, but she would walk in without her guards, her silver robe trailing softly, and sit near him with a quiet smile. Sometimes she spoke little. Sometimes she asked questions that no scholar could answer. "Elias," she said one afternoon, her voice gentle, "is it true that humans sing to their children?" He looked up from his notes and smiled. "Yes, my mother used to sing me to sleep when I was small. Her voice was soft, but it made me feel safe." Ariel tilted her head, her bright eyes full of wonder. "We used to sing long ago, but we stopped when our hearts grew still." He frowned slightly. "Still?" "Yes," she said softly. "We call it peace, but sometimes it feels like emptiness." Elias listened in silence. There was something sad in her tone, something she tried to hide behind her calm voice. In that moment, he understood. She wasn't just curious about humans. She was hungry for something she had lost. Days turned into weeks, and their friendship grew. They spoke about everything, about Earth's blue oceans and Lysera's silver rivers, about the taste of rain, the sound of storms, the feeling of laughter. Ariali asked him what it was like to be afraid, to love, to fail. Elias told her stories of human explorers who crossed galaxies knowing they might never return. He told her about artists who painted sunsets even when they knew the sun would fall again. About parents who worked their whole lives for children they would one day leave behind. Ariali listened as if each word was a treasure. Her people did not speak of such things. For Lycerians, emotion was something to be tamed, not felt. One night, as they sat under the glowing tree in the palace garden, she said quietly, "You humans burn so bright. Even when the darkness is all around you, you keep shining." He laughed softly. "We don't know how to stop." She looked at him for a long time, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Maybe that's why I can't look away." Elias froze. The words hung between them like fragile glass. She turned her gaze down, embarrassed. For a moment, they both said nothing. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the scent of silver blossoms. He wanted to say something, anything, but his heart was pounding too fast. In the days that followed, he tried to act normal. He worked, studied, translated. But he couldn't stop thinking about her, the way she laughed softly at his human mistakes, The way her eyes glowed when she listened, the way she looked alive whenever they talked, and Ariale too found herself changing. She began to smile more. She began to feel impatience, excitement, even joy. Emotions that Lycerians usually buried deep began to rise in her heart. The palace servants noticed. So did the nobles. They began to whisper. "The princess spends her time with a human," they said. "How shameful. She lowers herself for a creature of dirt and bone." But Ariale ignored them. She had lived her whole life being perfect, being quiet, being everything her people wanted her to be. For once, she wanted to be herself, and somehow, this strange human made that possible. One evening, a storm rolled over the city, an event rare on Lycera. The skies darkened and rain fell like glowing crystals. The air smelled sharp and clean. Elias was in the library watching the light flicker through the windows when Ariale entered. She wasn't wearing her royal robes, just a plain cloak. Her silver hair was slightly wet from the rain. "I wanted to see you," she said simply. Elias stood, unsure what to say. "You shouldn't be here. If someone sees—" "I don't care," she interrupted. Her voice trembled slightly. "You speak of rain, but I never felt it before today. It's cold and alive and wild. I wanted to share that with you." He stared at her, unable to speak. "Come with me," she whispered. Without thinking, he followed her into the garden. The rain fell softly, glowing faintly as it touched their skin. Ariale laughed, lifting her hands to the sky. "It feels real," she said, spinning slowly, her robe catching the light. Elias watched her in awe. The perfect princess of Lycera, standing barefoot in the rain, smiling like a child. "You'll catch cold," he said, half laughing. "Let it," she replied, her voice warm. "If this is what humans feel, then I want to feel it too." Something inside him broke and healed at the same time. He stepped closer, his heart racing. The rain made her shimmer like living light. She looked at him, eyes bright with something new, something dangerously close to love. "Elias," she whispered, "why do humans love even when it hurts?" He swallowed. "Because the pain reminds us we're alive." Her lips parted slightly. For a moment the world went still. Only the sound of rain remained, and then gently she reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, glowing faintly where they met. Elias froze, afraid to breathe. "Warm," she said softly. "Your warmth. It feels like the sun." He didn't know how long they stood like that, two worlds touching, rain falling around them like crystal tears. But in that single moment, they both knew something had changed forever. When they returned to the palace, her guards were waiting. Their eyes were sharp, their expressions unreadable. One of them bowed deeply. "Your Highness, the Queen requests your presence." Ariel's smile faded. She turned to Elias, her voice low. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." He wanted to believe her. But as he watched her walk away down the glowing hall, his chest felt heavy. He didn't know that the Queen had already heard the whispers. He didn't know that a storm far greater than the one outside was about to fall on both of them. The palace of Lycera had always been a place of silence. Every step, every word, every movement was measured and graceful. But now, whispers filled its halls like cold wind. "The princess," they murmured behind silver masks. "She walks with the human. She laughs with him. She touches him." The word spread faster than light. In every corner of the empire, the rumor grew. Princess Ariale, daughter of Queen Cerathia, had been seen holding hands with a human from Earth. For the Lycerians, it was unthinkable. Humans were considered young, fragile, creatures of emotion and chaos. To love one was to fall beneath the dignity of the royal blood. But love, as always, did not care for dignity. Elias felt the change before anyone told him. When he walked through the halls, the nobles' eyes followed him like shadows. Their gazes were cold, sharp, and full of quiet anger. Once a Lycerian noble deliberately bumped into him and whispered, "Be careful, human. You are playing with fire that will burn you whole." Elias didn't answer. He couldn't. Deep down, he knew they were right. He had crossed a line that no human should cross. But how could he stop seeing her? Every evening, Ariale still came to the library. Every morning, she found excuses to walk near his quarters. They spoke less now, but when their eyes met, the silence between them was enough. Love had grown in the quiet spaces, between words, between smiles, between fear and longing. One night the queen called her daughter to the throne chamber. Ariale entered slowly, her heart heavy. The great hall was empty except for her mother, standing by the tall crystal window, looking out at the city lights. The queen's silver robe shimmered like liquid light, but her face was hard as stone. "Do you know what they say about you?" the queen asked without turning. "I do," Ariale said softly. "Then you know what it means." The queen's voice cut through the air. "You have brought shame to the royal bloodline." Ariale looked down. "I have brought truth, mother. I have found something real." The queen turned, her eyes glowing with cold fury. "Real? He is human. They are short-lived creatures. They die before we finish a single century. What can he give you but grief?" "Life," Ariale whispered. "He gives me life." Her voice was trembling, but her heart was steady. "You say humans are weak because they die. But that is why they live so fully. That is why they love so deeply. Their hearts are fragile yet stronger than any of us." For a long moment, Queen Serathia said nothing. She simply stared at her daughter, her expression unreadable. Then with a deep sigh, she said, "You are young. You are confused. I will not punish you, but this will end. You will not see him again." Ariale's eyes filled with tears. "Mother, please." The queen raised her hand. "Enough. Do not make me command it." The words struck like ice. Ariale bowed her head and left the hall. But her tears glowed as they fell, leaving faint trails of light on the floor. Elias waited for her that night, sitting in the quiet library. He stared at the door, hoping, praying she would come. But she didn't. Hours passed. The glowing lamps dimmed. The palace slept. And he sat alone, his heart aching with silence. The next morning he received an official message, an order to return to the human quarters and remain there. No explanation, no visits, no contact with the royal family. He understood immediately. They were being torn apart. For days he obeyed. He stayed in his quarters, did his work, kept his head down. But every night, he couldn't sleep. He would walk to the garden where they had once stood in the rain and look up at the glowing sky. The memory of her voice haunted him like a dream that refused to fade. He told himself it was for her safety, that she needed to stay away to protect her honor, her family, her people. But his heart whispered something else. She's out there, hurting too. And he was right. In her room high above the city, Ariale sat by the window every night staring at the same stars. She had never known pain before, not like this. Lysarians rarely cried, but now she couldn't stop. Every tear burned, every breath felt heavy. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. He will only bring you grief. But grief was better than emptiness. One evening she could bear it no longer. She disguised herself in a plain cloak and slipped out of her chamber. The palace guards did not notice. No one imagined a princess would dare to sneak out like a thief. She found Elias in the lower courtyard, sitting alone on the steps, looking at the sky. When he saw her, he stood immediately, shocked. "Ariale, what are you doing here? If they find you—" "I don't care," she said, her voice breaking. "I couldn't stay away. I can't pretend anymore." He shook his head. "You'll lose everything, your family, your crown." "I already lost my heart," she whispered. "What else is there left to lose?" And then, before he could speak again, she took his hands in hers. Her touch was trembling but sure. "Elias, I don't know how long we have, but I know this: I love you. I don't care what they call it. I don't care what they take from me. You made me feel alive in a world that forgot how to feel." Elias stared at her, his throat tight, his eyes stinging. For a moment the universe disappeared. There was only her, the impossible, beautiful being who had chosen him. "I love you too," he said finally, "and I'll spend whatever time we have proving it." They didn't know that a pair of eyes watched them from the shadows. A palace guard had followed the princess, obeying secret orders from the queen. When Ariali left, the guard bowed low before Queen Sarathia and said quietly, "Your Majesty, the rumors are true." The queen closed her eyes. A long silence followed. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "So it begins." The next morning, the royal order was given. The human translator, Elias Ward, was to be removed from the palace immediately. He would be sent back to Earth on the next diplomatic ship. No explanation, no farewell, and for Princess Ariali, silence. No one dared speak of it to her, but when she went to the library, his chair was empty, his books closed, his scent already fading from the air. She stood there for a long time, unable to move, unable to breathe. Her heart felt like breaking glass. She whispered softly into the quiet air, "You said humans burn bright. Then I'll carry your light, wherever I go." Outside, the two suns of Lysera rose slowly, painting the sky in silver and gold. But for her, the day felt darker than night. The morning of Elias's removal came quietly, without warning. No one knocked on his door. No one explained. Two royal guards simply entered his room, their faces hidden behind silver masks, and handed him a scroll sealed with the mark of the queen. He already knew what it meant before opening it. By royal decree, it said, the human Elias Ward is to return to Earth immediately. His duties on Lysera are hereby concluded. No reason, no farewell, no mercy. He looked at the guards, trying to find some trace of kindness in their glowing eyes, but there was nothing. Only duty. "When do I leave?" he asked quietly. "In 1 hour," one of them replied. Elias nodded slowly. "May I at least say goodbye?" The guard hesitated, then shook his head. "It is not permitted." Elias turned away, hiding the pain in his face. He packed his few belongings, a small datapad, his notes, a silver bookmark Ariali had given him once when they read together in the library. That was all he had. That, and memories too heavy to carry. The palace looked different as he walked through it one last time. The shining halls that once amazed him now felt cold and hollow. Every glowing wall, every quiet echo reminded him of her. The sound of her laughter, the warmth in her eyes, the way she spoke his name as if it mattered. He passed through the library, stopping at the table where they had once sat. Her chair was empty. A faint mark on the marble showed where her hands used to rest. He reached out and touched it gently, whispering, "Goodbye, Ariali." For a moment he thought he heard a soft voice answer, like a memory caught in the air. But it was only silence. Outside, the ship waited on the royal landing platform. The sky above Lysera was a perfect silver blue, calm and endless, as if mocking his pain. As he approached, one of the guards said, "You will be escorted until departure. You may not leave the platform." Elias nodded without speaking. His throat felt tight. He wanted to scream, to demand to see her one last time. But what good would it do? The queen had decided. Love was not enough to fight an empire. He took one last look at the palace towers. They shimmered like glass under the twin suns. Somewhere inside, he knew Ariali was watching too. In her private chamber, Princess Ariali stood by her window, her hands trembling. She had begged her mother for one last meeting. The queen had refused. "You will forget him," her mother said sternly. "It is for the best." But how could she forget someone who had shown her how to feel? The palace servants whispered that the human was leaving, that the ship was ready. Ariali didn't think. She didn't plan. She simply ran. Down the spiral halls, through the glowing corridors, past startled guards who shouted her name. Her robe fluttered behind her like silver fire. When she reached the platform, she saw him, standing at the base of the ramp, his bag in his hand, his eyes turned toward the sky. "Elias!" she called out. The guards tried to stop her, but she pushed past them. He turned, disbelief in his eyes. Ariale, how? I couldn't let you leave like this, she said, breathless. You were just going to disappear. Like you never existed. He shook his head sadly. Your mother gave the order. If she sees you here, I don't care what she sees, Ariale cried, her voice breaking. I care about you. She stepped closer, her eyes glowing with tears. You came into my world and showed me what it means to be alive. You taught me to laugh, to feel, to hurt. I won't let them erase that. Elias's heart felt like breaking. He wanted to hold her, to tell her everything would be all right, but he couldn't lie to her. They'll take everything from you, he said quietly. Your title, your freedom, your family. Then let them, she whispered. If love is a crime, I'll bear the punishment. The guards approached again, uncertain. The captain hesitated. He had never seen a princess cry before. Elias reached out and gently took her hand. Her fingers were trembling, glowing faintly against his rough skin. You were never meant for someone like me, he said softly. Your world is light, mine is shadow. She shook her head. No, Elias, you are the light. My world was empty before you came. The words hit him like a storm. His chest tightened. He wanted to take her with him, to run, to steal a ship and escape into the stars. But reality stood between them, cold, unbreakable. He brushed his thumb against her cheek, wiping a tear away. If there's a way, if there's even a small chance, I'll come back for you. She smiled weakly, her voice trembling. Then I'll wait, even if it takes a lifetime. The guard stepped forward. It's time. Elias let her hand slip from his. It felt like tearing his heart apart. She watched as he walked up the ramp. The engines began to hum softly, glowing with blue light. Before the ship doors closed, he turned one last time. Their eyes met, two hearts separated by duty and distance but bound by something stronger than both. I love you, she whispered. He couldn't hear her through the glass, but he read the words on her lips. And then the ship rose slowly into the sky, disappearing into the silver clouds. Ariale stood there long after it was gone, the sound of the engines fading into silence. Her tears fell like drops of light vanishing into the marble floor. Behind her, Queen Sarathia appeared, her face calm but her eyes unreadable. Mother, Ariale said softly without turning. Why does love frighten you? The queen didn't answer. She only placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. It is not love that frightens me, she said quietly. It is what it costs. Ariale closed her eyes. Then I will pay it. The queen's hand fell away. She left without another word. Ariale remained there alone, watching the sky, whispering to herself, Come back to me, Elias, no matter how long it takes. In the human ship drifting away from Lysera, Elias sat by the window, his eyes fixed on the shrinking world of silver and light. His heart felt hollow, his hands cold. He pulled from his pocket the small silver bookmark she had given him. It still carried the faint scent of her, like starlight and rain. He closed his eyes and whispered into the quiet hum of the ship. I'll come back. I promise. Far away in her lonely chamber, Ariale pressed her hand to her chest where his warmth had once been. The palace might have taken him away. The queen might have forbidden his name. But love, once awakened, does not die. And though neither of them knew it yet, destiny had not finished with them. Days passed after Elias's departure, but for Ariale, time had stopped. The palace was quiet as always, filled with light and beauty, but everything now felt lifeless. The flowers in the crystal gardens no longer glowed for her. The music halls echoed with hollow notes. Even the stars outside her window seemed dim. She kept her crown on the table, untouched. It felt too heavy for her head now. Every time she saw it, she remembered Elias's hands, rough, warm, human. the hands that had once brushed a tear from her cheek without fear or permission. But now those hands were gone, taken from her by duty. Every night she dreamed of him. Sometimes she saw him walking through Earth's rain, alone. Sometimes she dreamed of him calling her name across the stars. And sometimes she dreamed of the day he had left, the way he had turned on the ramp, his eyes full of pain. She woke up crying, whispering, "Elias." She could not go on like this. One night she walked to the garden that overlooked the Queen's Tower. The wind carried the faint hum of the city far below. Lysera's twin moons shone bright above the palace walls, bathing everything in soft light. There, standing in the shadows, was someone waiting. Captain Relar, the same royal guard who had escorted Elias to the ship. "Princess," he said quietly, bowing his head. "You should not be here alone." Ariali looked at him with tired eyes. "You helped take him away, didn't you?" Relar lowered his gaze. "It was my duty." She stepped closer. "And if duty hurts the innocent, is it still right?" The question struck him silent. Then softly she said, "Tell me, Captain." "When he left, did he say anything?" Relar hesitated. "Only that he would return for you. He swore it." Her breath caught. "He said that?" He nodded. "I did not believe him then. But I have seen humans fight for less than love. Perhaps he meant it." For the first time in many nights, a small light flickered in her heart. "Thank you," she whispered. The next morning the Queen called her to the throne chamber. The room was vast and glowing, filled with courtiers and guards. Queen Sarathia sat upon her throne, a figure of calm authority. "Daughter," she began, her voice cool and distant, "I have made arrangements for your future." Ariali stood still. "Arrangements?" The Queen nodded. "You are to be bonded to Prince Kareth of the Solarii. His empire is powerful. This union will bring peace and strength to our people." Ariali felt her heart freeze. "You're marrying me off?" "It is not marriage as the humans call it," her mother replied. "It is alliance. You will fulfill your duty." Ariali's voice shook. "And my heart, mother? What about that?" The Queen's expression hardened. "Hearts heal. Kingdoms do not." The words cut deeper than any blade. For a long moment silence filled the hall. Then softly Ariali said, "No." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "I said no," Ariali repeated, her voice trembling but strong. "I will not marry him. I will not live a lie. Do you understand what you are saying?" The Queen said coldly. "You are defying the crown." Ariali raised her chin. "Then let it fall." For the first time in her life, the Queen looked shaken. That night Ariali did not sleep. She packed a small satchel, no jewels, no royal garments. Only a few simple robes, a pendant Elias had once repaired for her, and a shard of crystal from the garden where they had first spoken. She left her crown behind on the pillow, shining quietly in the moonlight. When she stepped out of her chamber, 2 guards blocked her path. But before they could speak, Captain Relar appeared from the shadows. "Go," he said softly. "I will see to it that the others do not follow." Ariali hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" Relar met her gaze. "Because I have seen what love does. It makes the strong remember they have hearts." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he bowed. "May the stars guide you, Princess." She moved through the quiet halls like a shadow. The palace that once felt like home now seemed like a prison of light and rules. Every step she took echoed against her fear, but she didn't stop. She reached the hangar bay, empty except for a small diplomatic shuttle. Her hands trembled as she activated the controls. She wasn't a pilot, but she had watched Elias do it many times. As the engines came alive, alarms began to echo faintly through the palace. Someone had discovered her absence. "Ariali," a voice called behind her. It was her mother. The Queen stood at the edge of the platform, her robe billowing in the wind. "Stop this madness." Ariali turned, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mother, but I can't live without him. I won't." Sarathia's eyes softened for just a second, just long enough for Ariali to see the hidden pain behind her coldness. Then the Queen said, almost whispering, "If you go, There will be no coming back. You will lose your title, your name, everything. Ariel nodded. Then let me keep the only thing I have left, my love. The queen took a step forward, reaching out her hand. Ariale. But it was too late. The shuttle lifted from the ground, its light flooding the chamber. Through the glass, their eyes met one last time. Mother and daughter, bound by blood but divided by choice. Then the ship shot into the night sky, breaking through the clouds, vanishing among the stars. Hours later, the queen stood alone on the balcony, watching the streak of light fade away. An advisor stepped forward. Shall we send pursuit ships, my queen? She shook her head slowly. No, let her go, the advisor hesitated. But she will find what she is searching for, the queen said softly. Or she will learn why I feared love. Her voice broke at the last word. She turned away before anyone could see the tears in her eyes. In the shuttle, Ariale sat at the control seat, the stars stretching endlessly before her. The vastness of space no longer frightened her. She opened a small screen and typed in coordinates. The location of Earth. Elias's home. Her hands trembled as she whispered, Wait for me, Elias, I'm coming. Outside, the stars glowed brighter, as if lighting her path, and somewhere far away on a small blue planet, a human man looked up at the night sky, feeling something stir in his heart, as though a promise made across galaxies was finally being kept. The stars gave way to darkness as Ariale's shuttle entered Earth's orbit. The blue planet shone below her, bright oceans, green lands, white clouds, so different from Lysera's silver skies. Her heart raced. After weeks of traveling through empty space, after running from everything she had known, she was finally here. She looked down at the world beneath and whispered, Elias. I'm here. The landing was rough. The shuttle had taken damage during the flight and she was no trained pilot. It crashed into a quiet forest at dawn, scattering leaves and smoke. When she stumbled out, her silver robe was torn, her face smeared with dust. The air felt heavy, full of scent and sound, birds calling, wind rustling the trees. It was alive in a way her homeworld never was. She looked around in awe. So, this is Earth. But then reality hit her. She was alone on a strange planet with no guide, no help, and no idea where to find him. Still, her heart refused to fear. Elias was here somewhere. She could feel it. She walked for hours, following small dirt paths that led out of the forest. Humans she passed stared at her, some in confusion, others in curiosity. Her glowing skin and silver hair caught every eye. Children pointed. Adults whispered. When one old man stopped her and asked gently, Are you all right, miss? She simply smiled and said, I'm looking for someone. Who? He asked kindly. She hesitated, then whispered, The one I love. The man only nodded, his old eyes soft with understanding. Then keep walking, child. Love finds its way. Those words gave her strength. By nightfall, she reached a small town. The streets were quiet, lights glowing warmly in the windows. She wandered, exhausted and lost, until she saw a small cafe still open. Inside, a young woman behind the counter looked up in surprise. Whoa, she said softly. You okay? You look like you've been through a lot, Ariale smiled weakly. I have. The woman handed her a glass of water. Where are you from? Ariale hesitated. Far away, the woman laughed. Yeah, I figured. You're not from around here, are you? No, Ariale said softly. I came for someone. The woman leaned forward. Lucky guy. What's his name? Ariale's eyes glowed faintly as she whispered, Elias Ward. The woman blinked. Elias? You mean the engineer guy who lives near the river? He comes here sometimes. Ariale's heart stopped. He's here. Yeah, the woman said, pointing down the road. Second left, small wooden house. He's quiet, nice guy. You a friend of his? Ariale smiled, tears welling in her eyes. Something like that. She ran, the streets blurred under her feet. The night wind whipped through her hair. Her heart pounded faster with every step. When she reached the riverbank, she saw it. A small cabin, warm light glowing through the windows. Smoke drifted from the chimney. She stopped for a moment, trembling. Her mind was filled with fear and hope all at once. What if he had moved on? What if he had forgotten? but she took a deep breath and walked forward anyway. Her hand hovered over the door for a moment, then knocked softly. Inside, Elias sat at a small desk working by lamplight. The sound of rain tapped gently on the window. He looked up at the knock, surprised. Probably another delivery, he thought. He hadn't seen anyone for days. When he opened the door, his breath caught. There she was, soaked from the rain, her silver hair clinging to her face, eyes glowing softly in the dark. For a moment, neither of them moved. "The world seemed to stop, Arielle," he whispered. She smiled through her tears. "You remember me." He let out a shaky breath, half laughing, half crying. "Remember you? I've thought about nothing else." She stepped closer, her hands trembling. "I came back for you." He looked stunned. "How? Why?" "Your people, I left it all," she said simply. "The crown, the palace, everything. I couldn't breathe without you, Elias, so I came." Elias's throat tightened. He reached out slowly, afraid she'd vanish if he touched her. But when his fingers brushed her cheek, she was real. Warm, soft, alive. "You came across the stars," he whispered. "For me." She nodded, tears running down her face. "For you?" He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if the universe might take her away again. She clung to him, burying her face against his chest. For a long time they said nothing. The rain fell harder, thunder rolling softly in the distance, but inside it was peace. Later, they sat together by the fire. Elias brought her a blanket, watching her with disbelief and awe. "You're here," he said again, as if saying it could make it real. "I thought I'd never see you again." Arielle smiled faintly. "Your people were kind to me. I thought they would be afraid of what I am." "Humans fear what they don't understand," he said softly. "But they also love deeply when they choose to." She reached for his hand. "Then I will learn. I will live here among your kind if you'll have me." He looked into her eyes, those bright alien eyes that had haunted his dreams, and said quietly, "You never had to ask." She laughed softly. "On my world, that would be considered a proposal," he smiled. "Then maybe it is." She tilted her head. "Do humans propose without kneeling?" Elias chuckled and slowly knelt before her. "Better?" Her eyes shimmered. "Perfect." He took her hand gently. "Arielle of Lysera, will you stay with me?" Her lips trembled. "Always." He kissed her hand, then her forehead, and she leaned forward, resting her head on his shoulder. The fire crackled softly beside them, and the storm outside faded into a gentle whisper. For the first time since leaving her world, Arielle felt peace. Not the quiet of royal halls, but the warmth of belonging. She looked out the window, rain washing over the earth, lightning far away, and whispered, "This world is so alive." Elias smiled. "It's messy, loud, imperfect, but it's home." She turned to him, her voice tender. "Then it's mine too." He reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. The silver glow of her touch mixed with the golden firelight, shining together like something new. Two worlds had clashed. Two hearts had fought, and love, and fragile, foolish, human, had won, far away among the stars. A message glimmered on the royal communication network. An image of the missing princess, alive and smiling beside a human. Queen Serathia watched it in silence. Her advisors awaited orders, but the queen only whispered, "So she found him." And for the first time in many years, the Queen of Lysera smiled, not as a ruler, but as a mother. A year passed. The little wooden cabin by the river had become a home filled with quiet laughter and light. Elias worked as a mechanic in town, fixing machines for the people who brought him broken things. And Arielle, once a princess of a shining empire, now spent her days learning human ways. She learned to cook, though she often burned bread. She learned to plant flowers in the soil, her glowing hands turning the seeds into tiny blooms. She learned to laugh loudly and freely without the stiffness of the royal halls. At night, she and Elias sat by the fire. Sometimes he told her stories about Earth, about oceans, storms, and childhood dreams. Other times, she told him tales of Lysera, of glass towers and silver skies. Two worlds met in their words, and love bridged the space between them. But peace never lasts forever. One evening, the air outside grew strangely still. The wind stopped. The forest fell silent. Then the sky above the river split open in light, a soft silver glow that spread across the clouds. Elias stepped out of the cabin, shielding his eyes. "What in the world?" Ariali froze. She knew that light. It wasn't Earth's. Moments later, a sleek vessel descended through the clouds, tall, graceful, glowing with the mark of Lysera's royal crest. Her heart raced. "It's her," she whispered. "My mother." Elias turned to her. "The Queen?" Ariali nodded, her voice trembling. "She's come for me." The ship landed in the open field beyond the river. Its silver ramp extended slowly, and from the light emerged the Queen of Lysera, tall, elegant, dressed in robes that shimmered like moonlight. Around her were guards, silent and still, their armor gleaming. For a moment no one spoke. The sound of the river was the only thing between two worlds. Ariel's hands trembled. She wanted to run to her mother and hide all at once. Elias gently placed his hand over hers. "It's okay," he whispered. "Whatever happens, we face it together." She looked at him, the man who had crossed stars in her heart, and nodded. They walked toward the field, hand in hand. The Queen's eyes found them immediately. For a second, her mask of power faltered. Her daughter looked different, dressed in simple clothes, her hair tied back, her bare feet in the grass. But she was glowing with something the Queen had not seen before. "Ariale," the Queen said softly, her voice echoing like distant thunder. "You look well." "Mother," Ariale whispered, bowing slightly. "You came." "I had to," the Queen replied. "Half my court believed you were dead. The other half thought you had been captured. But now," she paused, her gaze falling on Elias, "I see neither was true." The silence between them was heavy. The guards shifted uneasily. Elias stepped forward and bowed, awkward but sincere. "Your Majesty." The Queen studied him, the human who had turned her daughter's world upside down. He was nothing like the princes of Lysera. No glowing eyes, no aura of power, no titles. Just a man, simple and mortal. Yet there was a calm strength in him. The kind that doesn't need crowns to be seen. After a long moment, the Queen asked the question everyone was afraid to voice. "Who is that?" she said quietly. Ariel turned to her mother. Her voice was steady, her eyes shining with love and pride. "The human I married." Gasps came from the guards. Even Elias's heart stopped. He hadn't known she still called it marriage, but hearing her say it here, before the Queen, filled him with warmth so deep it hurt. The Queen's eyes widened. "You married him?" "Yes," Ariali said firmly. "Here, on this world. No crown, no ceremony. Just a promise between two hearts. I belong to him as he belongs to me." The Queen looked from her daughter to Elias, her face unreadable. "Do you understand what that means, human? You have bound yourself to royal blood." Elias nodded slowly. "I didn't fall in love with a princess. I fell in love with a woman who laughed at the stars and asked why they shined." The Queen blinked, caught off guard by his words. "And you would give up your world for her?" He smiled gently. "I already did." For the first time, the Queen had no reply. Ariale stepped closer, her voice trembling but strong. "Mother, I know what you fear. You think love weakens, but it doesn't. It teaches us what strength truly is." "You left your duty," the Queen said, though her voice had softened. "I left a title," Ariale answered, "not my heart. You taught me to protect what I love. I'm doing that now." The Queen's eyes glistened. She turned slightly, looking at the sky, perhaps hiding the emotion that cracked through her armor. "I swore I'd never let love cost me again," she said quietly. Ariale took a step forward, then let it heal you instead. The Queen's breath shook. She had crossed galaxies to bring her daughter home, but standing there, she saw something she had never expected. Happiness, real, fragile human happiness. After a long silence, the Queen finally spoke. "I came to bring you back," she said softly, "but now I see you have already found home." Ariali's eyes filled with tears. "You're not angry?" The Queen gave a faint, sad smile. "Angry, perhaps I was. But seeing you now, I remember what it felt like to be young and foolish enough to love someone completely." Elias glanced at her in surprise. "You'd loved once too?" The Queen's eyes met his, and for a brief moment she looked human herself. "Once, long ago. I lost him to time. Perhaps that is why I feared you." Ariale reached out slowly, taking her mother's hand. Then maybe this time love doesn't have to end in loss. The queen looked at their joined hands, human and alien, fragile yet shining. Finally she nodded. Perhaps not. That night the queen stayed in their small cabin. She watched her daughter cook clumsily, watched Elias laugh when she burned the bread again, and something inside her, something she had buried beneath duty and pride, began to thaw. When she rose to leave the next morning, she turned to Elias. "Take care of her," she said simply. He smiled. "Always." Then she faced her daughter. "If you ever wish to return, the skies will open for you. Not as a princess, but as my daughter." Tears welled in Ariale's eyes. She hugged her mother tightly. For the first time, the queen embraced her back. When the royal ship lifted into the sky, Ariale and Elias stood together, hand in hand, watching it disappear into the clouds. "Do you think she'll be all right?" Elias asked quietly. Ariale smiled. "She will. She finally understands." "Understands what?" "That love," she whispered, "isn't weakness. It's what keeps us alive." Elias looked at her, sunlight dancing in her hair, and whispered, "Then I guess we're immortal." She laughed softly and leaned her head on his shoulder. The river flowed, the sky cleared, and for the first time since two worlds met, there was peace. Not just between stars, but between hearts.